Hey everybody. Had a little mic trouble on this one. Sound quality is not going to be up to usual standard. Sorry.
You gotta learn them young. I don't know what made me want to talk about this, but, sometimes those things pop into my head and you guys get a video on it. So as I've mentioned in a number of videos at a number of points, I am a parent. I have a daughter. She's currently 7, and this part I haven't mentioned, she's not into the stuff I'm into. She doesn't share my geekdoms. There are things that we both like. I mentioned we watched Hilda together, a lot of the animated films that I do reviews on. She comes with me to see those, but by and large, she just doesn't dig most of the geeky things I'm into. And normally that wouldn't strike me as so odd, or, nothing worth commenting on. Except that, as I look around, both with people who I know in my life, and also with, from what I can see of what filters back to me through social media, it seems to be a fairly big thing with my generation of kind of, feels like a harsh word, but kind of indoctrinating our kids into our fandoms. And like I said, that feels like a harsh word because indoctrination carries a lot of baggage as a term, but it's kind of hard to think of what else it could be, or what else you would term it as. And I'm not going to say that I'm like above that. Like my kid, at a month old was wearing a Doctor Who onesie. She knew how to say sonic screwdriver before she was 2 years old. When she was really little, I used to hold her in my arms and watch the Justice League cartoon. She's been around this stuff. She knows what it is. But it's also not really her thing. And that kind of got hammered into me initially. Sort of the first clue that maybe she wasn't going to dig everything that I'm into, was when I tried to show her Star Wars. Now, this was a couple years ago, but we got as far as Luke meeting the droids, and she turned to me and said, "Can we do something else?" She was bored. And again, there are some things that I like that, that we like together, and there are some things that are my geekdoms that she has an interest in. She's not super into it, but she does like Batman. She likes Lego Batman best, but she likes Batman. She does like Ghostbusters. She's seen the movie. I was worried that it was going to be too scary for her, but she enjoyed it. But she likes the cartoon of it better, and I do have those. But even those, she's not like super into. Like she's into dogs and wolves. Are kind of her big thing. But here was the key thing that I kind of zeroed in on that made me not only okay with the fact that she's not really into my stuff, but oddly kind of proud of it. And that is, I realized that the fundamentally what she looks for in her entertainment, the stuff that I like, isn't going to supply to her. I'll clarify that in a minute, but I also kind of want to back up because I don't want it to sound like I'm bagging excessively on my generation of parents. Because, the idea of sort of getting your kid into the stuff you like, that didn't start with us. I mean, the classics would have been, I got how many people of any age, mostly guys, but like how many sons were sort of indoctrinated into a certain sports fandom by their dad. Often a sport that they themselves played at some point in their life, that they really get their sons into. That sort of thing. Or, people really into cars kind of want to teach their kids how to be into cars, fishing, whatever. So none of this is new. I think the difference is that with my generation, a lot of the stuff that we wish to pass down is considered, or was until recently, to be childish things. So whereas as an adult it was acceptable to root for a sports team, until fairly recently it would be a point of mockery if an adult person, had Star Wars toys, and, was playing video games. But things have shifted where that's now acceptable as an adult, but these are still also, they were for us in our childhood, and they're still here for our kids to enjoy. And it hasn't really happened with entertainment like this or on this scale before. And also, kind of uniquely for my generation, a lot of the stuff that we loved as kids, like the real specific stuff, is still around. And not just in the sense of like, oh, we can watch the old things. I mean, like, they're on what? Like their 5th Ninja Turtles reboot? There's new Spider-Man? There's like all this stuff is made. There's new DuckTales. So the nature of the reboot culture gives us one more way to sort of bring our kids into this. And again, I don't want to say that's necessarily a bad thing. And when I say that I'm okay or even kind of proud that my daughter isn't, it's not because I feel it's a bad thing to get your kid into your geekdoms. But what I clued in on, and this is me like sort of stepping out of the bigger picture broad strokes and making it much more personal, what I clued in on is that what my daughter likes in her entertainment is that she likes emotional resonance. She enjoys connections between characters. She enjoys emotional resolutions much more than combat. So what the upshot of that is anything that is resolved in a big fight, if it's being done, like sometimes if it's a big fight but it's funny, Teen Titans Go, Lego Batman, she can go for that. But if the thrust of the conflict and the way that it's intended to be resolved is through combat, she kind of gets bored. She, and I mentioned this before, as of right now, and it has been since we saw it in the theater, her favorite movie of any movie is A Wrinkle in Time, which is a film and a story that ultimately climaxes and resolves on one character telling another that they love them. Her favorite part of Moana is the very end, where Moana stops a monster not by fighting it, but by understanding its pain and making a connection with it. That's the stuff that speaks to her. And it shows a desire for an attraction to empathy that, as a parent, makes me makes me feel really warm and really proud of my daughter. And it's made the pill a little bit easier to swallow, the fact that she's probably never going to get into the majority of stuff that I like, because most of what I like ultimately is in some way combat-centric. Star Wars is combat-centric. Superheroes are combat-centric. Indiana Jones is combat-centric. Star Trek, rather, one could argue isn't always combat-centric, but they still usually tend to climax in some kind of action scene. The good guys win when the bad guy dies, even if it's not by a fist fight. And I might try to get her into Doctor Who. I think she might be a little bit more interested with Whittaker in the role. But even that, she's kind of, I also don't think sci-fi in general is her thing, which would be a separate thing. But it's it's funny because it was something that initially I worried a little about, because I wondered, are we going to connect? Because I can think about the stuff that my mother introduced me to that I loved, which includes Star Wars. Or heck, it's stuff that I love that I used to do with my grandmother. I used to play Nintendo with my grandmother. I used to watch Star Trek The Next Generation with my grandfather. A lot of memories and a lot of connections are built around that. And I had, for a little while, a fear of not having some of the things that I could build memories around with her, around shared loves like that. But recognizing what it is she likes is actually what got me to push her to try Hilda. Because when I finished it, even though I liked it but didn't love it, I finished it, the show about a young girl who seeks to understand things and help them more than like forcibly stop them. And I knew she'd love it. And she did. Can't get her to watch She-Ra, but she loved Hilda. And I knew she would, because I get her better than I used to. And even if that means that she'll never go with me to a Marvel movie premiere in at the theater or whatever, that is okay, because I've got a pretty awesome kid. And this has gotten a bit personal. I hope folks don't mind too much. And before anybody asks, no, she's not going to be appearing on camera. She's too young for that. When she is old enough that I feel confident that she understands the consequences of actually putting yourself out there on the internet, and she expresses a desire to actually do it. So far, she has no interest in this end of my life. Maybe then, someday, but no, not anytime soon. So that's that one. That's me just kind of having a happy dad moment on camera. Self-indulgent? I don't know. Whatever your thoughts were on this, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff that you can do, because there's buttons, there's links. There's Patreon, which is incredibly helpful. The reason this video looks the way it does is because I was able to get a new camera, and that was possible because of that. So much appreciated to those who already do. Please check it out if you haven't. There's other links to look at besides that if you want to. But even if you don't, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you are the council, and I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.